I always thought my sister Elena was perfect. At least that's what everyone told me growing up. Why can't you be more like Elena? My mother would say, shaking her head at my B-plus report card, while Elena's straight as decorated the fridge. Elena never gives us trouble. My father would remind me when I wanted to study art instead of business like her. Now, at 28, I watched as Elena commanded attention at her own engagement party, her emerald designer dress catching the light just so, her perfectly styled hair gleaming under the crystal chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom. Even her laugh seemed rehearsed, musical notes floating across the room as she charmed yet another potential investor for her hedge fund. "Sarah, stop hiding in the corner." My mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "Come help your sister with the guest list. This wedding needs to be perfect." Perfect. That word again. I smoothed down my simple black dress, feeling underdressed as usual, and made my way toward Elena and her fiancé James. They looked like they belonged on a magazine cover. Elena with her model-like features and James with his sharp jawline and venture capitalist success. "There's my maid of honor," Elena exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug that smelled of expensive perfume. James and I were just discussing the venue options. "The plaza is beautiful, but don't you think it's a bit conventional?" James smiled, his arm wrapped possessively around Elena's waist. "We're thinking of flying everyone to Lake Como. Giorgio Armani's villa is available for the weekend." I tried not to choke on my champagne. "The entire wedding party? To Italy?" "Of course," Elena beamed. "Daddy already said he'd handle the private jets. We just need you to coordinate all the travel arrangements. You're good with details like that." I felt my stomach sink. As a freelance graphic designer, I barely made enough to cover my small apartment's rent. The thought of organizing international travel for 200 elite guests made me dizzy. "Speaking of details," Elena continued, lowering her voice, "we need to discuss your dress. I'm thinking we should have Vera Wine design something, slimming. We want the photos to be perfect." The countdown to Elena's wedding was like watching a luxury cruise ship prepare for its maiden voyage. Everything had to be immaculate, coordinated, and absurdly expensive. 3 months before the big day, I found myself practically living at Elena's penthouse apartment, sorting through endless details and vendor contracts. That's when I found it. I was organizing wedding RSVPs in Elena's home office when I knocked over a stack of leather-bound planners. As I gathered them up, a small blue notebook fell open, its pages covered in Elena's distinctive handwriting. I almost closed it immediately, almost. But then I saw James's name. May 15th, met Jay again. He doesn't suspect anything. He thinks I'm at yoga. But these lunch meetings are becoming our little secret. The plan is working perfectly. My hands trembled as I read the entry dated just 2 months before Elena's engagement to James. I knew I should stop reading, but something compelled me to continue. June 3rd. E is still clueless about Jay and me. It's almost too easy. When this is over, everything will change. Poor naive Sarah, planning my wedding while I plan her heartbreak. E? Who was E? And then it hit me. E was Emma, James's ex-fiancée. The woman who mysteriously broke off their engagement last year, just weeks before Elena and James announced they were dating. My mind raced back to all those times Elena had insisted on handling the business side of James's venture capital firm. How she'd volunteered to meet with his partners, manage his schedule, coordinate with his ex's company. July 20th, James finally ended things with E today. He thinks it was his idea. Men are so predictable when you know which strings to pull. Now for phase 2, making Sarah fall for him. Once she's completely in love, the real fun begins. I felt sick. The room began to spin as more entries revealed Elena's elaborate scheme. She hadn't just stolen James from Emma. She had orchestrated everything, including my relationship with him. All those accidental meetings where James and I kept running into each other after Elena and he started dating. The way he seemed to know all my favorite things, my deepest insecurities, my dreams. Elena had fed him everything, crafted every moment. December 1st. Sarah actually thinks Jay loves her. It's pathetic how easily she falls for anyone who shows her attention. When he breaks her heart at my wedding, it will be the perfect revenge for stealing mom and dad's attention all those years ago. They might have felt sorry for their struggling younger daughter, but they won't anymore. Not when she has a public meltdown at my perfect wedding. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood made me freeze. I quickly shoved the diary back into the pile just as Elena walked in, her face glowing with artificial warmth. "Sarah, darling, have you finished with those RSVPs? The calligrapher needs them tomorrow." She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced my hands to stop shaking. "Just tired," I managed to say. "These wedding details are overwhelming." Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, buck up, little sister. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow, and I need you at your best. James specifically requested you give a speech." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "He's so fond of you, isn't he?" I watched my sister glide out of the room, her designer heels tapping a rhythm that suddenly sounded like a ticking bomb. The diary's revelations burned in my mind, but I needed more proof. If I was going to expose Elena's scheme, I had to be certain. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Emma, James's ex-fiancée. We'd never spoken, but I knew this was my only chance to uncover the truth before it was too late. "Hi, Emma. This is Sarah, Elena's sister. I need to talk to you about James. And Elena, please, it's important." The response came almost immediately. "I've been waiting for this call. Meet me in an hour. There's something you need to see." The morning of Elena's wedding dawned bright and clear, but I hadn't slept. My meeting with Emma had changed everything. She hadn't just confirmed my suspicions. She handed me a USB drive containing hundreds of emails between Elena and James, dating back to before he was even engaged to Emma. They revealed a plot so calculated, so cruel, that I could hardly believe my perfect sister had orchestrated it all. Elena hadn't just manipulated my relationship with James, she'd systematically destroyed multiple lives, including Emma's company, all to ensure her perfect wedding would be a stage for her ultimate revenge. I sat in the bridal suite, watching as Elena preened in front of the mirror. Her $75,000 custom wedding dress sparkled under the lights, each crystal hand-sewn to create what she called the perfect silhouette. The other bridesmaids fluttered around her like anxious butterflies, adjusting her train, touching up her makeup. "Sarah, darling," Elena called out, her voice honey-sweet. "Would you help me with my veil? These girls are absolutely useless." I stood up, my bridesmaid dress feeling like armor. In my clutch purse sat three things: Elena's diary, Emma's USB drive, and a small remote control that would connect my phone to the wedding venue's sound system, courtesy of the AV team Emma had hired. "Of course," I said, approaching her. "Everything needs to be perfect." Elena caught my eye in the mirror, something dangerous flickering across her face. "Are you feeling all right, sister dear? You've been rather quiet since the rehearsal dinner." I carefully pinned the cathedral-length veil into her perfectly styled hair. "Just emotional. It's not every day your sister gets married." "Yes," she smiled, adjusting her diamond necklace. "And James gave such a lovely speech about you last night. He's so convincing when he talks about love, isn't he?" My hands stilled for a moment. "Very convincing." "It's a shame," Elena continued, her voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear, "that he's such a good actor. But then again, so am I. We've been planning this for so long, Sarah. Your big dramatic scene at my wedding. Running out in tears when James announces he never loved you. It's going to be absolutely perfect." I stepped back, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "You really want perfect, Elena?" She turned, her smile razor sharp. "I found the diary moved yesterday. I know you read it, but it doesn't matter. It's your word against mine. No one will ever believe the jealous little sister trying to ruin my perfect day." I clutched my purse tighter. "We'll see about that." The wedding ceremony began exactly as Elena had planned. 300 guests filled the cathedral, fashion designers, business moguls, and socialites all gathered to witness what magazines were already calling the wedding of the year. I watched from my place beside the altar as Elena floated down the aisle on our father's arm, her expression serene. James stood waiting, handsome in his tuxedo, playing his part perfectly. Our parents beamed from the front row, proud tears in their eyes. The priest began the ceremony, his voice echoing through the vast space. "If anyone knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Elena's grip on her bouquet tightened slightly. This was supposed to be my cue, the moment she orchestrated for me to break down and confess my love for James, only to have him publicly reject me. Instead, I stood calmly and pulled out my phone. Actually, I said, my voice clear and steady. I have something everyone needs to hear. Before Elena could react, I pressed the remote. The cathedral speakers crackled to life, and her own voice filled the space. James and I have been planning this for months. Sarah's such a fool. She actually believes he loves her. When he humiliates her at our wedding, it will destroy her. Finally, everyone will see she's not the sweet, innocent victim my parents always treated her as. Elena lunged for me, but it was too late. The recording continued, detailing every cruel manipulation, every calculated move. James's face drained of color as his own voice joined hers, discussing their scheme. The guests erupted in shocked whispers. Our mother pressed a hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Our father stood up, his expression thunderous. "That's not all," I announced, pulling out the diary and USB drive. "I have proof of every illegal business deal, every destroyed relationship, every person you've hurt to create your perfect life, Elena. Including how you and James embezzled millions from his company to pay for this wedding." Elena's perfect facade cracked. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "I'm your sister." "No," I replied, hitting play on another recording. "A sister doesn't spend years plotting to destroy her sibling's life. A sister doesn't steal, manipulate, and hurt people just for revenge. You're not my sister, you're just someone who perfected the art of cruelty." The next hour was chaos. Security escorted James out when several of his investors demanded immediate answers about the missing millions. Elena's perfect wedding dress was torn as she tried to grab the evidence from my hands. Our parents watched in horror as years of manipulation and lies unraveled before their eyes. Later that evening, I sat in my apartment, finally free from the weight of Elena's perfection. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. "Justice served. Ready to start your new design firm? I know some investors who'd love to work with someone of actual integrity." I smiled, thinking of Elena being questioned by the SEC about her role in James's financial schemes, of James facing his angry investors, of all the perfectly crafted lies crumbling to dust. Sometimes perfect isn't what it seems. Sometimes the truth, messy and raw as it might be, is better than any perfectly orchestrated facade. And sometimes, the sister everyone underestimated turns out to be stronger than anyone imagined. I closed Elena's diary for the last time and opened my laptop. I had a design firm to build, a life to live. Not in anyone's shadow, but in my own light.